it's really important that all of the pieces of the puzzle are put together. Training and getting the employees excited is one of those pieces, but there are several others, and if you don't have them all, then it's probably not going to be sustainable. And that's the problem. It'll fizzle out, and then when it fizzles out, people will be like, well, that was a flash in the pan. It's the program of the month, and then they lose hope. They lose their focus.
What's up, everybody? This is Paul Critchley, president of New England Lean Consulting. Welcome to another episode of the New England Lean Podcast. I hope everybody had a great week last week. I hope you enjoyed our episode of our podcast last week and had a great weekend, and happy Mother's Day for all the moms out there who might be listening. I hope everybody had a great day celebrating this past Sunday. This week, I'm very excited to welcome a good personal friend of mine, John Dyer. John walks us through his work history, so I won't steal any of his thunder. But it in an odd twist of events, as it turns out, part of John's history was with Ingersoll-Rand, as is mine. And way back when, in the mid '90s, I had taken an internal class on problem solving that I kept the handbook for, and I busted that out. A few weeks ago, and was kind of just peeking through it. And as it turns out, John was one of the authors of that handbook. So even back then, we didn't know each other, and we've gotten to know each other real well in the last year or so as John has joined up in our Lean Happy Hour group, and we meet once a week. So I've gotten to know him much, much better. But I just thought it was kind of funny that 20 some odd years ago, our paths crossed, and I didn't even know it. And here we are now. He's, like I said, he's somebody I consider a very good personal friend of mine. And John does a ton of stuff. He writes a lot of articles for IndustryWeek. In fact, those articles are some of the most read and most downloaded in IndustryWeek history. I've read all of them, sometimes multiple times. They are chock full of golden nuggets. So if you don't follow him, you absolutely you must. He knows that many things, and he's willing to share. Of anybody that I know, John is one of those people that he's kind of an open book. And speaking of books, which I didn't plan, but it just kind of came out this way, John wrote a book called The Façade of Excellence, Defining a New Normal of Leadership. It came out last year. I own it. I've read it twice now, probably will a few more times. It's a great read. It's easily, in my top 10, if not top 5 favorite lean books. And we talk a lot about that on the show. So he really kind of paints a picture of what does real continuous improvement look like versus what does kind of fake continuous improvement look like. And he tells the story from two different perspectives, two different managers. And names have been changed to protect the guilty and the innocent. But as John talks about, all of this is based in real life. And if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend going to pick it up. I'll link to it in the show notes so you can go get it. But it's a really easy read just because of John's storytelling ability. And you can tell he's written a lot. So it definitely comes through in the book. One show note too. In this episode, we talk about a course that John's going to be teaching at Virginia Tech. After we recorded it, it turns out the date is going to change. Right now, I think it's still slated for the end of May this month, and I think it's going to have to move into June. I will include the link in the show notes, so you guys can definitely check that out. I think on the website, at least as of right now, they still have the May dates in there. So just be aware that those dates may change. But it's something I'm going to, regardless of if it stays in May or it does move to June, it's something I'm going to take because, again, John is a wealth of information, and definitely we can learn things from him. So as always, I hope you enjoy the episode. I hope you get something from it. Have a great week, everybody. I appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Welcome to the New England Lean podcast. I am wicked excited. Finally, we got John Dyer. Mr. Dyer, good morning.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
Doing well. Thank you.
How's the weather in sunny North Carolina?
Oh, it's great. 70s, 80s. We've had an amazing spring for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
So jealous. This is the time when I wish I was still back in South Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, you need a summer home where you are and then a winter home in South Carolina. See, that's when you get famous and wealthy.
Yeah, I'll hold my breath. Well, when this podcast gets picked up and I start making Joe Rogan kind of money,
right?
Then
right.
Yes.
When Spotify gives you that big contract.
I'm waiting. It's any day now. I know it's coming. I can feel it.
Yeah. Hey, you're building. You're building an audience and getting great guests, and I think it's terrific. You've really come a long way. So
thank you. I've been working hard at it for sure. So, although I'm sure probably a lot of people who listen to this show probably know who you are, in case they don't, can you just hum a few bars about how you came up and what you're up to now?
Yeah, it's funny because not as many people know me as you think. They've read a lot of my stuff, but they haven't connected the name with the person in a lot of cases. I've had several articles I've written for IndustryWeek magazine, as an example, that have made it in their most read article lists. And yet when I go to a conference with them, they're like, "Oh, you're John Dyer," because there's no picture, there's just the name. So a lot of people don't make that connection. But yeah, a little bit about my background. An electrical engineer by degree with an emphasis in robotics. And that got me into the door at General Electric. I was on their manufacturing management program for 2 years and then major appliances for 8. Then I left and joined Ingersoll-Rand. Most people are more familiar with their products than maybe the company name, like Club Car golf cars and Schlage locks at that time. Bobcat, we owned Bobcat when I was there. A lot of different products. So I was with them for 10 years. The last 4, I was a corporate VP and was responsible for helping get Lean and Six Sigma driven throughout the company. I had a couple of dozen resources that were spread around the world, helping get Lean and Six Sigma implemented throughout the company. I left Ingersoll-Rand, started my own consulting company about 16 years ago now. Like I said, I've been writing for IndustryWeek magazine for the last 7.5 years. One of those articles turned out to be so popular that a publisher contacted me and said, "Hey, you want to turn this into a book?" And I had my first book come out last year. So
ta-da! This me. One.
Yeah, The Façade of Excellence.
Yeah, I'm covering up your name for there you go. So people who are watching like, what? Yeah. So congratulations.
Yeah, it's been great. I really had a lot of fun writing the book. It highlights a lot of my experiences. I make it clear up front, even though it's story driven, that pretty much everything that happened in the story has happened in my career. But I wrote it in a story format to kind of protect the people that were involved. Nobody wants to be Frank Smith.
Yeah.
But I've had several people, try to guess who that is, right? Oh, I know, it's like, well, actually it's a compilation. Yeah. But it was fun to write. Just really bad timing because the book came out right before COVID hit. I had all these engagements set up to do speaking engagements and book signings and all that. And that all went out the window. So it's unfortunate, but hey, it's out there and people can still buy it. And so it's just a matter of getting word out.
Yeah. So I tell you, so you and I know, full disclosure, you and I know each other pretty well.
Even though we've never met.
I know, right? Which is weird. I can't believe
That's
that we
right.
haven't crossed paths, but so I started this lean happy hour thing and you had joined in on that. You've been, so it's every week and you've been like for a year now. It's been actually over a year. I was looking back.
Right.
And funny story, and I didn't pull it out. But when I started, I was a little hurt. You didn't mention Ingersoll-Rand owned the Torrington Company too, which is where
Yeah,
I
that's true.
started. Where
Yeah, that's
um,
right. I forgot about that.
that's okay. It was a tiny little piece off to the side, and they don't own them anymore. But so I was looking back, and I saved a bunch of my old, problem solving handbook and all this kind of stuff. And I was looking at it, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago. I posted this on LinkedIn. You helped write that manual. So in very real form, you helped teach me problem solving 25-ish years ago now. So
Yeah.
in a, this, what a small world we live in kind of scenario, it's like, wow, here I've been
Right.
talking to you every week for an hour for a year and didn't even realize.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing how small the world is sometimes. And yeah, that was a great experience. At Ingersoll-Rand, we wanted to try to get more uniform in how we did problem solving. So a small group of us got together and put that book together. And I've kept at it since then. I've refined it several times. I've added to it and tried to make it more, kind of user friendly. And now I use that with a lot of my clients. I'm actually teaching a class for Virginia Tech in the 26th of May, and participants in that will get a copy of the new revised problem solving handbook. So
Nice. Is that
yeah,
virtual?
but yeah, it'll be virtual class, 2 4-hour days, and I'll email them a copy of the problem solving handbook plus some other materials. Um, so yeah, it should be a good group.
Is
I'm
that
looking forward to it.
something that like anybody can sign up for through
Yeah,
Virginia
yeah,
Check?
yeah. Anybody can sign up for it. There's a small fee, but it's an introductory fee, so it's going to be less than if it does well, then Virginia Tech may decide to offer it multiple times. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a good group.
Nice. And I'll find that. I'll link to it in the show notes. So if anybody's interested, just look down there. You can find the link and click it and sign up. And I'll take a look too. I mean, I can always brush
Yeah,
up
no,
on stuff
I
like
tell
that.
you, it's really three things: facilitation, team dynamics, and problem solving. Basically, it's how do you facilitate a team through all the steps of problem solving. So we'll get into things like how to handle disruptive behaviors, and there is believe it or not, I've done this for many years. There's a single root cause for most disruptive behaviors. So wouldn't it be good to know what that is and deal with that way before the meeting even starts in order to have a more smooth meeting? There are multiple ways teams make decisions, um, reach a conclusion. And there's one of those decisions. These are teasers, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
one of those decisions, methodologies that will instantly destroy the team
Hmm.
every time. And it's one of the more common ways decisions are made. So again, wouldn't that be good to know so that you can avoid doing that? So anyway, those are a few teasers, but yeah, we'll have a lot of fun. We'll do some team building exercises and have some really good discussions. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. That's awesome. Congrats, man. And I got to give you a lot of credit. I mean, you do, I think honestly, I think you do more training than any other lean Six Sigma person I know. Because I'm always seeing you're doing stuff with, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know you did just one recently with IISE, I think, right?
Right? Yeah.
Um, have you done anything with ASQ, or is that, am I
I've done a
remembering that wrong?
little bit, but not a whole lot. I've done more with like AME. I've done quite a bit with IndustryWeek, and then of course, I've done well over 100 classes on lean basics. at GE, at Ingersoll-Rand, and as a consultant. I've had several of my clients that like that class so much. It's a 2-day class. It's very hands-on that they end up taking, all 800 or 1,000 employees through it, 25 to 30 at a time. So I've done that class and I've done it all around the world. That material has been translated into, 6 different languages. And
Wow.
I've had the opportunity to teach it in Japan several times, in China, Philippines, in Italy. I did it once with a group of Italian mechanics, and this is great because when you do things that are very hands-on, you don't really need translation very much. But these mechanics, there were like 20 of them, couldn't speak a word of English, so I had an interpreter. And the plant manager told me up front. He said, "Now, John," he said, "these guys never talk. They never talk. So, don't be surprised if you ask them questions and no one ever responds." Well, again, like I said, it's very hands-on, very interactive. You don't stay in your chair very much at all for the whole 2 days. So the plant manager comes back at the end of the 2 days, and these guys are up, putting Post-its on the wall, moving around, and talking, and and he's just like shocked. He's like, "Oh my goodness. I've never seen this before from this group." But they were so fired up that they asked the plant manager to stay another hour past the ending of the class because they wanted to start sharing their ideas on how to improve with them. And he was just floored. So again, that's one of my passions. I love teaching people at all levels, from, and in all departments, not just manufacturing. And I love seeing those aha moments where people really get it and they're like, "Oh man, we need to do this. I can't believe we're not doing this. This is great, great stuff." So that's, if you were to ask me, what my real passion is in life. And actually I'm kind of hoping that I get that same kind of response with the book. There's several times in the book where I think people will have that kind of aha moment where I don't know how much you remember from reading it, but it's like my favorite passage in the whole book is when Mary, one of the shop floor workers who really puts herself out there, she's very hesitant about getting involved. She doesn't want to be on a team. She pushes back, but eventually she's won over and she ends up becoming, one of the champions. And then the rug is yanked out from underneath her and everything goes back to the pre-lean team days. And she's sitting in her workstation, just totally depressed because she now realizes that, how bad things were before because it's coming back, and how poorly, people are being treated, and how they're being told not to give their ideas anymore. And anyway, without giving too much away, she takes matters into her own hands and says, "Hey, I'm not going to put up with this anymore." But I'm hoping that things like that will be aha moments for the reader.
Right. And I'll say too, now I had Kevin Meyer on a couple of weeks ago. His book, The Simple Leader, is truly one of my favorite lean books because it's kind of not even a lean book. And what I mean by that is, it just spoke to me. It's one of those things where it was just, as I'm reading it, there were several times I had to put it down and I'm like, wow. And and John, I gotta say, your book did the exact same thing. So I'll ask you in a second, about the format and everything, because I think it is pretty unique how you laid the book out itself. I'll say it's a pretty quick read, and I think it's a quick read, not because it's not substantial, but because as I was reading it, I'm like, that happened to me. And then 3 pages later, I'm like, that happened to me too. And it was probably, no kidding, 20, 25 times I'm reading this. And I same thing. I had to close it up just for a second. I'm like, so it's not just me. because, we've all been through all this for, if you've been practicing lean for any amount of time, or in, like my life is mostly manufacturing. That's where my career was, and that's, your book is based in that world. I'm like, it's why. And then, so after I've read it, and I tell you, I've read the book twice. So I read it and I read it again, and I'm like, I'm left with the same question at the end, which isn't for you. And it's really rhetorical for everybody. Why? Like, why is this? Why? It's 2021. We're halfway through. Why is this still a thing? Like, why is this old command and control? Because I said so, because that's the way we've always done it. Fudge the numbers, look good to your boss, when in reality, it may not be really that way. So anyways, I'm getting all wound up, but so it just, I get passionate about it because just like you mentioned, anytime I help a client, cause I'm out on my own now too. And, I'm running a firm that does lean and Six Sigma and quality management systems, but it's the same thing. Whenever we have a client that has that aha moment and people get excited, like I just taught a lean 101 class a couple of weeks ago, and it was the same thing. It just so happened that we weren't in a conference room. It was just kind of an open air kind of gathering area. And there's like a half wall and then offices around the perimeter on the outside of the building. And same thing. I don't like people to sit and like, who wants to listen to me talk, So I get them up and get them moving and get them excited. And then we do any number of different simulations. In this case, we did Legos. And I do it in 3 iterations, and like, even after halfway through the first, I got one team catcalling the second team, and like the second round, cause I have them running all around everywhere. One guy put a chair in the way. It didn't say anything from the other team. And he's trying to, it was just fun. So I get them all laughing, and, by like 10:30, 11 o'clock, I won't say it's a party, but we're having a lot of fun, and they're learning, and they're starting to open up, and they're like, well, let me tell you about what happened yesterday, and all that kind of stuff. And I had, because all the offices around the perimeter were like the general manager, the ops manager, the CEO, CFO, and I had a guy come up to me, and he's like, what are you guys doing over here? It's all I hear is laughing. And I'm like, well, I talked to him a little bit. And so it all ended really well. And that's where, I walk out of there, 4:30 or whatever. And it's like, there's energy. I'm more energized than I walked in that morning. That's what I get out of it. But so I'll throw it back to you a little bit. Sorry, the host isn't supposed to talk.
Yeah,
but,
no, I love that. Because now, again, think how passionate those folks are after going through that experience. And then imagine them going back to their daily job and then being told, no, you can't think, or we don't care about your ideas. And it's just like, this big high and then this big low. And that's why I'm so passionate about, hey, it's critically important that the leaders get on board and the culture changes in order to be able to build on that momentum when the people come out of a class like that so fired up. And it's, most of it is commonsensical things, and they're just like ready to just knock walls down for the company. And if the company doesn't realize the importance of that, then it actually could backfire and get worse. And that was like I mentioned with Mary. Once the rug was pulled out from underneath her morale was actually worse than it was before they went down this journey. And I've actually had several people tell me that, it's like, John, why did you share all this great information with us and help us see the light of what's possible? And then our leaders won't allow us to do any of it. And it's like, we would have been better off if we just didn't know. Mm-hmm. So again, I love the passion. I love the ahas. I love the laughter. My greatest classes, like I said, are a group of mechanics that ride in on their Harleys and have the leather vests and the chains, and they come to the the room in the morning, and they're sitting there like, you're
Yeah.
not going to teach me anything. I don't want to be here. And by the end of the day, they're just, like super into it, and I've had people tell me, oh, 4 o'clock, you better end right at 4 because I gotta go.
Mm.
And we'll get to 4 o'clock and I'll be like, okay, we're done. And they're like, no, we want to keep working on this. We want to keep. And I'm like, but you said you had to go. And he was like, oh, that was back when we thought this was going to be,
Yeah.
boring. It's like, no, this is great.
Yeah.
So again, it's really important that all of the pieces of the puzzle are put together. Training and getting the employees excited is one of those pieces, but there are several others, and if you don't have them all, then it's probably not going to be sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It'll fizzle out, and then when it fizzles out, people will be like, well, that was a flash in the pan. It's the program of the month, and then they lose hope. They lose their focus.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing. I mean, and similar, we see it play out on social media where it's, oh yeah, that we tried that and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work in this industry, and blah 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 blah. And it's like, when you start to peel the onion a little, it's like, no, what you were doing really wasn't lean. I don't know who told you that, but that's not what it is. I mean, and even like we have clients today that, simple thing like 5S. I was talking to an operator. He runs a lathe. He's the team leader. And he's like, yeah, I was talking to him a little bit. Now, this is a very good client of ours. We've been with him for years. So this is years ago. He's like, yeah, he goes, we have this guy in here. He's talking about S5. And I'm like, S5. It took me a second because I'm thinking S5. I'm like, oh, 5S. He's like, yeah, he said everything needed to be like right here and my bench and my work. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right. So he went on. I'm like, all right. That's not what this is. So forget, I don't know who that guy was. Forget everything he told you. Let me tell you how this really works. So I'm talking to him and he's like, that makes sense.
Right.
He goes,
right.
Now let's go. And same thing. Now he's like, let's go. Let's do it right now. What do we need?
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing is that, and you probably do the same thing. A lot of my activities, they go through and they learn this stuff. And it's not until later that I actually tell them what it is. Right. It's like, man, we can't get through this problem because this area is so poorly organized. Okay, what do you want to do? Well, let's organize it. Boom, 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 boom. And then later on, it's like, hey, you know what you just did is called 5S. Here are the 5 S's. Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. Why aren't we doing that? So, and that's one of my pet peeves actually is when people teach the tool without the knowledge that goes behind it. Dr. Deming talked a lot about that is that, you got to know the theory, you got to know you got to have the knowledge before you can really embrace it, until you can, before you can really ingrain it into the soul of the organization. And too often people come in and do, yeah, okay, let me tell you what the 5 S's are, or what a Kaizen is, or what a Kanban is. But they don't have anything to relate that to. So to them, it's just a bunch of Japanese words that don't really have much meaning. And then it's like, well, no wonder it falls apart. But that's at the worker level. Earlier you were asking a little bit about, what's the root cause of why leaders don't get it. We've been at this now for 30 years, and yet there's still so much reluctance. And again, I think, and I talk about this in the book, I think it all stems from the fact that in the early 1900s, management behaved a certain way, and that's what got people promoted. And it was all the command and control. It's like, hey, yeah, our workers may not even have a 5th grade education, so we're not even going to ask them to think, so we got to do all the thinking for them. And that's the people who got promoted. And those are the people who mentored the next generation of managers, who mentored the next generation, who mentored the next generation. And a lot of those old archaic ways of thinking and how people are measured for success are still deeply rooted in these organizations. And you'd say, well, gosh, what about even like a new startup? Well, guess what? They probably went to an MBA school that's still teaching these philosophies. They probably bring in some outside managers that bring with them these old, outdated philosophies. And all of a sudden, you could have a brand new company that's still using 1900 management techniques and tools. So it's basically, how do you break that chain? How do we break the chain of bad 100-year management practices? That's the challenge.
Right, right. So you've alluded to it a couple times. So I want to talk to you specifically about the book that you wrote, The Facade of Excellence, Defining a New Normal of Leadership. And I mentioned before, I love how you laid it out because it is very story-like. So I don't want to steal your thunder. So can you just walk us through, not only, how you decided to lay it out this way, but because it's very, I won't say black and white, but you paint two pictures, right? Of the way it kind of sort of is and all the stuff we've been talking about the last 20 minutes or so. And then kind of the way that Lean would encourage us to make it. So I'll throw it back to you. Can you just kind of allude to that a little bit?
Yeah, the way the style of the book came about because of my articles I wrote for IndustryWeek. When I started writing for IndustryWeek, I came up with this format kind of just on the fly, where I would set a premise in the first paragraph or two, give a story that outlines, how that premise actually happens in real life. And believe it or not, Mary is in several of those stories. So some of the characters actually transferred over. And then the conclusion, what did you learn? And how can you apply this knowledge to the real world? So the feedback I've gotten on those articles has been very positive. And like I said, several of them have been in their top 10 most read articles, 10,000 plus reads. But more than that, they have statistics on everything that tracks on the website, right? And I was told that the average length of time people spend with an article is less than 30 seconds, right? They read the headline, they may read the first few lines in the first paragraph, and then they stop. My articles, the average length of time was over 7 minutes, which meant that people were engaged and wanted to find out what was going on in the story, and it also had some of the most printouts of any articles that they had. So that told me that format resonated with folks. So the book is written. Each chapter is half narrative that goes throughout the book, and then half, what are the lessons learned? And in the lessons learned part is where I put some of my own personal stories. I talk about, for example, the GE days where, the bottom 10% of employees had to be fired. I lived through that as a manager. And you can just imagine the things that behaviors that generated. Basically everything was built on fear. And that was one of Dr. Deming's most popular points that he talked about the most in my time spending with him was drive out fear. Well, when 10% of every department had to be fired every year, that just drives fear like crazy. So in the lessons learned part, I try to relate some of my own personal experiences. The format of the story is like you said, it follows two executives. One's named Frank Smith, and he encapsulates all the bad things that managers do. And he uses fear, he uses command and control, he manipulates data like crazy, and all in the name of trying to get himself promoted. Then you have his peer, another executive named Jim Brown. He's new to the company. He comes in with a perspective of, hey, I want to do it the right way. I want to get the employees involved. I want to set up high performing teams. I want to train everybody. I want to get the entire culture changed within my part of the business. But he inherits a staff that is used to working for the Frank Smith type managers, and they're just completely blown away by all of his proposals and can't handle it. I mean, they're used to being told what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And now all of a sudden you've got this guy coming in and saying, hey, I want to get your thoughts. I want to be more of a team. I want to go all the way to the shop floor and get the employees engaged. And they're like, oh my goodness. Even one of them says, and I've actually heard this quote many, many times in my career, that you're going to let the inmates run the asylum.
Mm-hmm.
How is that even possible? So he realizes he's got to win his staff over first, and then start winning the employees over. And it's a lot more difficult than he thinks. He thinks this is going to be, a piece of cake. And then there's actually a twist at the end where, like I said, the rug gets yanked out, and he has to live through that as well. Mm-hmm. And again, all of which are based on real experiences. I've seen exactly what happened in the book happen multiple times. There's one story, part of it where Frank Smith, one of the workers comes to his office and says he's having problems with parts sticking in the machine, and Frank's, because they went to a new supplier and got low cost parts. Well, the parts don't work. So Frank Smith calls up, and says, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh yeah, we saved all this money by switching to this other supplier. Okay, so his answer is he basically tells the maintenance guys to give the operator a stick to unjam the parts and make them work, basically. Well, I had that stick. Second shift engineer on the shop floor, and we went to a low-cost supplier, and the parts were awful and were jamming, and my boss told me that I had to keep the line running at no matter what, and basically gave me a stick to reach through and unjam the parts. So again, the stories are real. They actually did happen. Now, the other thing about the book is throughout all this, it introduces, this is the new normal of leadership. It introduces some new concepts of how to think maybe a little differently about leaders. When, Dr. Deming in his 14 points talked a lot about the need to substitute leadership, abolish management by objectives and substitute leadership. That's in several of them, but he never really explains what leadership is. What does he mean by substitute leadership? And as throughout the years, I've noticed that there are many, many different types of leaders, all of which are either not very successful or wildly successful. And I started to kind of think through this. Well, wait a minute. How can you say this leadership style works in this case and the employees love it, but this completely different leadership style works in this other situation and the employees love it? And they're so different from each other. Well, that's what led me to thinking about this leadership spectrum, and it basically ranges from dictator on one side, which is, we don't think that is a very good leadership style. But believe it or not, there is a time and place for that. If you're in crisis mode, you need a leader that's willing to step up and make the tough decisions and get the get the company out of crisis. Now, the problem is once they do that, they tend to start liking that leadership style, and then everything becomes a crisis, and then the employees rebel. So you can't be in that style for very long. You've got to figure out how to shift. Well, the other end of the spectrum is collaboration, where you have fully empowered teams. And it's funny because several people I've talked to over the years are like, empowerment's, almost a dirty word because it never really happens. We talk about it, but it never really happens. Well, I've actually worked with several companies that have gotten to that end of the spectrum, and it's amazing what they can accomplish. I mean, the employees, like I said, would knock walls down for you, because they're respected. The level of trust is very high. They've been well trained, so they know how to make decisions. They know how to do the problem solving tools. They can do it right there on the shop floor, closest to the process. So they don't have to go up a chain of command in order to get approval for doing things. And the leaders trust them to make the right decisions and use the right tools in order to, minimize risk. And it's an amazing environment to work in. And people who have worked in those environments know exactly what I'm talking about, and are like, man, I'm going to want to work here forever. So I in the book, I call that enthusiastic productivity. And I think it's a real thing. And it's nothing an accountant could ever put a dollar amount to. But when you get your workforce really fired up and they feel respected and they feel like they're a part of the success of that company, everyone wants to be part of a winning team. And if they feel like they've contributed to that, then there's no stopping them. And just one last thing. In the book, I talk about my favorite day in manufacturing in my entire career. And it was a particular plant where we went through this journey. I was there for 3 years. And when we started down this journey, the performance of this factory was very poor and the morale was horrible and the culture was very toxic. We went down the journey I outlined in the book, and we got to that collaboration, empowerment side of the spectrum. It took us a while, it doesn't happen overnight. And we had these big electronic scoreboards throughout the factory that had how we were doing real-time data on throughput, safety, and quality. Well, the first day at the end of the shift that we hit 100% in every one of those metrics, there were like 6 of them up there, 100% all the way across the board. I was out in the factory when that happened, and all of a sudden, the entire plant erupted in spontaneous applause and cheers, and people were just, throwing confetti up in the air and running up and down the aisles, high-fiving each other. It was amazing to see. I mean, it was amazing to be a part of. And it just goes to show that those employees were so engaged and owned that system so much that it was their win. It was their success. And it was like, man, this is awesome, because they also knew that if we did those things, our customers would be happy, which means better job security and growth. And they wanted to be a part of that. Again, you'll never put a dollar amount to that, but it's real. It's really a real thing. The enthusiastic productivity.
It's priceless as far as I'm concerned, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the struggle. I think I agree 100%, John. Everything you just said, it's, I can't say I can't agree more, because, and that's where I think we do stub our toe. And I say we as a nation, community, whatever you want to call it. It's not just in manufacturing, because I've had jobs where I didn't want to go. I've talked about it on the show before. There have been places where, I get up and I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to go because I know today's going to suck. And but I'm going through my morning routine because I got bills, right? And this is where I think a lot of folks are. and I'm driving to work and I'm hating life, and I get there and I'm parking my truck and my stomach and my chest start to hurt, but here I am walking in knowing full well I'm not going to do my best work today. I'm not in the right mindset. And I think you can make the case that part of that was probably my fault, right? Because it's a choice. And as I've gotten older, I'm working on that, and I continue to. But by the same token, there were days where I'm getting yelled at by some VP for something I had nothing to do with. I don't run the team. I'm not the project manager. It's like, but yet I happen to be the person that was in front of him right then. And so I'm literally getting screamed at. Like, what? And this isn't that long ago. This isn't 30 years ago. This is like, it's probably 7 or 8 years ago, but it's like, are we not on the same team? Like, aren't our badges the same color? Like, in what world do you think talking to me like this is going to inspire me to want to do anything but, quite frankly, meet you out in the parking lot, which, oh, by the way, I can't, because VPs have their own special parking lot underneath the building, literally, so their cars don't get rained or snowed on. True story. And they have their own elevator, so they can go right up to their offices. And it's like, you know what, dude, if we were at a bar, this would end differently than it's going to end right now. And so I'll just finish it. So all that's true. I won't tell you where or who it was, but if he listens, it was you, right? So I'm quitting. I quit. I put my 2 weeks in. And at this place, I had to meet with this guy every Thursday. It was me and a few other folks that, we had to give updates on our projects and that kind of stuff. So my last day was Friday. So I walk in, it's 1:00 on Thursday. And so I walk in, I happen to be the first one there. And he looks at me, he goes, "Hey, I hear you're leaving." I said, "Yeah, I'm moving on." John, he looks at me, he's like, "But why?" I'm like, "Are you out of your mind?" And I didn't say it quite this way, but I did say, I said, "Is that a serious question?" And he wasn't expecting me to kind of because I'm like, what do I care? I'm out of here tomorrow. I know I'm never coming back. But I was a little disrespectful, but not much. I'm like, dude, yeah, his name. I'll say it, Tom. I'm like, that you can't be serious. I'm like, every Thursday at 1:00, I walk into this office along with all these other people. Now, mind you, it was only us in the room. I said, but I'm like, and you proceed to rip us all a new one. All of us. I'm like, you've literally yelled at me, looking right in my face, and asked me if I was stupid and if all my team was stupid. I'm like, why would I ever want to stay here if that's how I'm going to get treated? And he just like speechless. And I don't think he was used to anybody talking to him like that, because as you said, the whole organization was built on fear. He sat in the corner office, had the big windows, the whole thing. And, it was like, everybody was like, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" And I'm like, that's not me. Like, so yeah, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. I'm not putting up with this. Why? Why would I do this for a paycheck?
Yeah. No, and I think, Paul, what were all the things that had to happen in order for that guy to get into that position, right? It's like, clearly the executives put him there. So they must have liked that style. The human resource department had to have interviewed him and had to have said, "Wow, this guy really is a command and control, fear mongering guy. He's our guy. Let's put him in there." He had to, board of directors, he's probably high enough up to where the board of directors probably know who this guy is. They have to embrace him. So it is. And that's why, it's going to be so difficult to change this, is that again, it's decades and decades and decades of people thinking that the best way to motivate people is to berate them and drive in fear. And the opposite is 100% correct. But now think about this, and it's like, okay, so then why don't more people do this? Why didn't that guy say, Paul, you're right. And I think I'm going to change, change and turn over a new leaf. So there's an activity that I do in some of my training classes where I give people a task to do. I get some volunteers and they're given a task to do, but they're all blindfolded. So they can't see what they're doing. And then I have a volunteer be a leader. So in this first round, the leader has to tell them exactly what to do and how to do it because they're blindfolded and they can't see and they don't know what's going on. They don't even know what the task is. So the leader has to basically tell them exactly what to do and how to do it. It's extraordinarily frustrating. In fact, the leader usually threatens to quit several times or threaten to fire all the people several times. And most of the time they don't even get the task done. But if they do, it usually takes maybe 4 or 5 minutes to get it done. Then I say, okay, we're going to go to the other end of the spectrum and do collaboration. So I asked the leader we're going to change the style. I said, I want you to share your vision of what the team needs to do, what the task is, explain to them what you're trying to accomplish, what success looks like. And then I tell the employees to take their blindfolds off. Now they can see what they're doing. And they don't even, at that point, the leader basically becomes a cheerleader. They're just saying, in the background going, yeah, go at it. And usually the employees can get the task done in about 20 seconds. And they're all high-fiving each other and they're like, yeah, this is great. I've even had some of them tell me, hey, can we do it again? Because I think we can do it even faster. But then I asked the audience, this is a really important question. Of those two leaders that you just saw demonstrated, the one who had to tell them exactly what to do, how to do it was very frustrating, morale was bad, and it took forever to get it done. Or the leader that provided the vision, became a coach, became a cheerleader, and then the employees were turned loose to get the task done in a fraction of the time. And the employees were loving it. They were excited about it. I said, think about this. Which of those two leaders would most likely be promoted in your company today? And every single time I've asked that question, they point to the first one. Mm-hmm. Because the first leader looked like they were in charge, looked like they were engaged, looked like they had all the responsibility, looked like they were making all the tough decisions, and the employees were just cogs in the machine. And it's like, my goodness, how crazy is that? Because the second leader has now inspired their workers and they got it done in a fraction of the time and they think they can do it even faster the next time. They're motivated. Why wouldn't you promote that leader? And it's like, they should be promoted. Everybody agrees. Oh yeah, second guy should absolutely be promoted. But no, that's probably not what's going to happen in our company. I'm like, that's what's got to change. That right there is what's holding us back as a manufacturing society in the U.S. And that's why I wrote the book. That right there.
Nice. All right. So, John, I do like always to take a little bit of a break and play something I call the wicked fun part and a little hat tip to my Mainer heritage. You up for this?
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. Here we go. All right. So I got some rapid fire questions for you. I'll just throw them out. See how you do.
All right.
What do you think about when you're alone in your car?
Several things, I think. My faith is critically important to me. So sometimes I think about that. My family is critically important to me. So I think about my family a lot. But it's funny, and you probably experience this too. When you're a process improvement guy, when you're in your car driving, all the things that don't work also annoy you. Like when there's a green arrow and there's no one in the turn lane and everybody is wasting their time because the green arrow doesn't work right.
Yes.
I'm thinking,
yeah,
why didn't somebody fix that? So, yeah.
It's funny that, yes, I drive my family crazy because I verbalize that.
Right,
when we're
right.
in
No,
the car.
I
I'm
do
like,
the
look
same
at this.
thing.
So you can't, this isn't right and that's not right. And they're just like, ugh.
That's right. My wife says she keeps. You're not going to be able to fix it. Just let it go. You're not going to
That's
be able to
my
fix
same.
it.
Um. Oh, here's a good one for you. Do you have any advice for a previous boss of yours?
Read my book.
There you go. Frank Smith, if you're out there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
What did you want to be when you were little?
I can remember very vividly being a young kid on my grandmother's farm and wanting to know how the tractor worked. I wanted to know how the engine turned the wheels of that tractor. That fascinated me. I mean, I was probably maybe 7 or 8. So my entire life, I have wanted to know how things work. And so that's what got me into engineering, because I wanted to know how things work, and robotics. So I've always had a passion for robotics. So my dream job would be, that the company where they're experimenting with all these robotic types, the dog and the
Oh,
ones
yeah.
that almost look human. That would be a dream job.
Gotcha. Well, I'm pretty sure that I forget what it is, cybernetics or something, but I'm pretty sure all those are going to take over pretty soon. We're going to be right.
That's right.
Our robot warlords. So when that happens, I'll come down because you can help reprogram them and keep us all safe.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if you've ever seen the show BattleBots.
Oh,
on TV.
I love that show.
I love that show too. But I think that when the robots do take over the world, they're going to use that as evidence that humans were not kind to robots. Because
No kidding.
when those things hit each other and just explode, it's like, yeah, that's awesome.
It is cool. It is cool. I've been trying to get my kids into it, and they're not so much.
I would love to almost like form a club and build one of those robots.
You know what?
That would be awesome.
We absolutely should do that.
We should do that. If we were if we live closer, if you moved to South Carolina, Paul, we'll do that.
Done. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to go see the wife and I'll plant the seed and see what she says. When are you the happiest?
I tell you, when I'm with my family and we're playing games, when we're playing any of the games, Pictionary, Sequence, any of those, and we're just laughing and cutting up and competing with each other. Those are my fondest memories for sure.
Yeah, I like that too. All right, final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I would like for God to say that maybe I made a difference in the world, right? That maybe I helped, bring a little bit of His kingdom on earth. That would be awesome. So yeah, that's what I would hope. Yeah,
I think that should be everybody's goal, regardless of whatever faith they happen to practice, is if we all just tried to, leave it a little better than we found it. And maybe under the continuous improvement umbrella, maybe we try to do that every day. Just do one little thing, let somebody in front of you in traffic. Like, just stuff like that. And I recently I posted something on LinkedIn about, a pet peeve I have, which is, you and I post a lot, right, on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and, and I'll sometimes I'll put something out there and I'm not going to say that I'm not always right. I know I'm not, but a lot of the stuff I just have my opinion and, I try to back it up with facts because I'm an engineer. And sometimes people don't like it, and that's fine. But there's other times where it just seems like sometimes it's a contest to that somebody can like do something and pick it apart, And I've had people, I'll post a picture or even I'll get tagged in a picture and somebody will be like, well, how come this and how come that? And it's like, how did you even draw that? Like I don't know. Just to me, it doesn't help. It doesn't push
Yeah,
us towards that.
it's like, why can't people be nicer, right? Why
Yeah.
can't people? And the problem is that, and this is my experience, and probably yours too. All the people I've worked with, 99.5+% are amazing people. Even the most dire people that I've been warned about. Oh yeah, that you don't want to talk to him. Oh my goodness, he's going to rip your head off. You treat them with respect, and you listen to them, and you build a sense of trust, and they start to realize that you're there to help them. Oh my goodness, you can win them over.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this, I have encountered just less than what I could count on one hand of people who just come to work every day to destroy. I mean, destroy relationships, destroy the company, destroy whatever. And it's amazing how many of those folks are on Twitter and LinkedIn, and and they have a platform now, and it sounds or feels like it's a lot of people, but I'm convinced that it's just a handful of people, in their basements, trying to get clicks by being as controversial as possible, and it just makes the entire platform seem a lot uglier than it really is.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's human nature, right? Like when I wrote my articles, I could get 100 positive comments and one snarky comment, and it's that snarky comment that I remember. And it's like that's the one I focus on. I'm like, oh, why couldn't I have won that one person over? So again, what I learned throughout all that is that you just have to finally just start ignoring those and just saying, hey, you got your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I didn't win you over, but I'm not going to let you bring me down. I'm going to focus on the 900 that were positive.
Yep. And I honestly, John, I have the same, I have the same issue. I'll do the same. I'll focus in on those things. And my wife will say, what, you get all these glowing reviews. Like I've taught workshops at AME and I'll get, all fives at, but there's always that one person that, right. I taught, I think it was Boston. Somebody clearly didn't like my workshop. I had like 35 people, I got, I think 20 responses, 19 of them were all fours and mostly fives. I had one person give me like a 3 and they're like, I knew all this stuff already. This wasn't worth $200 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Ed, like you just said, I can see it. I can close my eyes. I can see it in my head. And it's like, what about all the other people like that I got through to and that got something from what I had to say? But I don't know. But I'm with you. I've gotten to the point now too, where it's like, you know what? I ignore them. And if they get real belligerent, they're blocked and that's it. I don't even think about them anymore. It's like, you know what? You want to be like that? More power to you. Best of luck.
Right.
You're going to have your people that follow you because they're into that. They're into the snarky and the cut. And it's like, okay, knock yourselves out. We'll see where we're all at and, down the road.
And another way to handle that sometimes is just to say, hey, I'm sorry that this didn't work out for you. Best of luck. And, in other words, take the high road. And for some of those folks, there's nothing worse than that. They're, oh, why didn't you get mad? Why didn't you fire back? And it's like, no, I don't want to play your game.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I because early on in my writing with IndustryWeek, I would try to respond to every one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, let me tell you why this, after a while, it was just like, it's not going to have an impact.
Right. They've made their minds
they're
up.
Just being snarky to be snarky.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I'd say, hey, thanks for your opinion. Sorry we don't agree. Maybe you'll like the next article better.
There you go. There you go. All right, John, I shall let you go, sir. Thank you so much for coming on. And again, I apologize that it took us so long to finally pull this all together, but I got to bring you back because there's all kinds of more stuff that we could go.
Yeah, there's a lot more we could definitely talk about for sure. And I love it. I love these conversations. Hopefully your listeners will get something out of it. And I really appreciate the invite. And I think it's great how prosperous your podcast has become. It's getting good traction. That's great.
Thank you. Like you said, I'm working hard at it. So again, that's why I do it. I don't make any money doing it, but I'm trying to promote a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, that to give, I don't know, somebody, not a voice, but an outlet to listen to say, you know what, I am going to give this lean thing a try. I am going to try to do something a little bit better. Maybe they get a breakthrough with somebody, and maybe you're right. Maybe they stay at a job. Maybe that job gets better. Maybe it's a leader that says, you know what, this ain't working. Let me try this other. I don't know. I mean, all I can do is put it out into the universe and hope the universe takes care of it.
That's great. Yep. That's exactly why I wrote the book. Same reason. So awesome. Very good. Well,
but I'll link to it. So Amazon, good place to get everything else.
Amazon.com. Yeah, it's right there. It's it's Barnes and Noble's website. It's on pretty much every bookseller kind of website.
Okay. All right. So I'll link out to those two in the show notes, so it'll make it easy for people to click and find it.
All right. Well, I appreciate it.
All right, John. Have a great week, great weekend.
All right. You too. Thanks,
All right,
Paul.
Sir. Hey, everybody. It's Paul. Before I let you go, I just wanted to say thanks again for listening. You've really made doing this podcast a very rewarding experience for me. I get a lot of messages from listeners, and everyone has something nice to say, which I very much appreciate. Of course, I'm always open to feedback on ways we can make it better. I mean, that's Kaizen after all, and by no stretch do I claim to have got this all figured out. So if there's things that I could do better, please, by all means, feel free to reach out and let me know. And likewise, if there's somebody that you think would be a great guest, also let me know. There's a chance I don't know who those folks are. So somebody that you can help put us in touch with, somebody you want to learn more about, certainly let me know and I'll reach out to those folks. But I hope you find the podcast fun and entertaining, educational, and maybe even a little inspirational, I hope. That's really what I'm going after with this whole thing. So thanks again. And one small ask, if you don't mind, if you listen, whatever your preferred platform is, if you could just, subscribe, give us 5 stars on Apple or whatever, again, whatever platform you listen to, it helps. The algorithms like it. So if you could do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And we'll talk to you real soon. Thanks, everybody.